This video is brought to you by friend of the channel, Squarespace. Stick around to learn more about them, as well as a special offer they're making available through my channel. Gamers! Before anyone says anything, yes, I changed my logo and my branding, and yes, I know everyone hates it, okay? People have been spamming me all week like, oh, your new logo sucks. It looks like a supermarket chain or a petrol station logo, or you looks like you deliver packages. Well, I don't care. I like it, okay? I'm the one who has to stare at it all day, every day. You guys see it like once or twice a week, tops. Maybe more than that if you're foolish enough to follow me on Twitter. I do think it's important to pay my respects to the previous logo, which has served me well. I started here. Look at this fucking logo, my god. Before eventually transitioning to this logo about 6 months later. By the way, back then people were like, oh, the old logo was so much better, why did you change? Crazy. This new logo would go on to serve me for 5 years as I transitioned from being a Division YouTuber into a general looter-shooter dude into the C-tier games reviewer you see before you today. It's been a hell of a ride, plenty of ups like the Nier Automata and Warframe and Fallout 76 and Anthem reviews, but plenty of downs like the time I said that the Division was too easy and everyone got really mad at me, or the time I said the Marauder sucked. Big mistake, don't ever mess with Doom fans. Every step of that journey, this trusty logo has been there through thick and thin, but now I must bid it a fond and grateful farewell. Good night, sweet prince. You are gone, but you will never be forgotten. And in the years to come, I will probably dunk on you the same way I did that first logo. God damn, just look at this logo. Holy shit, what the fuck was this? As big a news as my logo change is, you didn't come here to hear about that. You came for gaming news. So let's get right to it, shall we? It is the end of the year, and so publications are turning their gaze to their rearview mirror to bestow coveted Game of the Year awards. IGN is doing that, but they're also doing something else, taking a look back at the most finished and most unfinished games of 2021. I don't mean unfinished in a Battlefield 2042 sense, by the way. I mean unfinished like what percentage of players actually finished the game. The data comes from IGN's sister site How Long to Beat, which does rely on user-entered data, so it's going to be wildly inaccurate, except in a relative sense. And relatively speaking, it appears as though Resident Evil Village was the most finished game of 2021, narrowly beating out Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. This result doesn't surprise me, since most people really loved Village, and it was also a nice, short, sharp adventure, generally clocking in at a very doable 12 hours for your first playthrough. The list of retired or unfinished games is equally illuminating. Topping the list is 12 minutes, no doubt owing to how frustrating and obtuse so many of its puzzles were. I'm going to say that those people who started it but didn't finish, believe me, you dodged a bullet. There are certain lines you don't cross, and that ending crossed all of them. But yes, it is a Game of the Year award season right now, and I must say, it's nice to see how much diversity there is across the field. In prior years, these behemoths like Breath of the Wild or God of War or Red Dead would soak up every award, but with 2021 being absent one of those knockout punches, the conversation has opened up much more widely, and a huge range of titles are being recognized. IGN awarded Forza Horizon 5 their Game of the Year award, a truly deserved win, as Forza is arguably the most polished, accessible, and feature-rich racing game ever made. GameSpot awarded Deathloop their Game of the Year. I don't agree with that for many reasons that I described in my Deathloop review, which I put up this week. Link to that below the like button, by the way. But many people did love Deathloop, and so yeah, this nod is just as valid as any other. Polygon awarded Inscription their Game of the Year, which echoes much of what I've heard, particularly from Alana Pierce, where she gushed about it when we did a podcast with her and Yong and Jake Baldino recently. Link to that below the like button as well, by the way. Time Magazine isn't exactly a core gaming publication, but they gave Metroid Dread their Game of the Year award, which is nice to see because Dread was a true return to form for a long dormant franchise, and Metroid fans absolutely loved it. Finally, my favourite nod is Game Informers, who awarded Halo Infinite their Game of the Year. While I wasn't as in love with Halo Infinite's campaign as many others, I still play the multiplayer every single day. I love it, and I'm just so glad to see this franchise back in the spotlight. Racking up awards, getting hundreds of thousands of viewers at esports tournaments. Halo is like gaming royalty, and to see it thrive again, it's just a really wholesome feeling. If you're wondering, yes, I'm working on a Game of the Year video at the moment, and it will go live Friday the 31st of December at midnight Sydney time, but time conversion is so complicated, so just do this. Click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, and I will personally notify you when that video is live. I'm nice like that. You're welcome. I'll tell you one company who's glad to put 2021 behind them, CD Projekt Red. I think we forgot that Cyberpunk came out only around a year ago. It feels like 5 years at least. With how disastrous its launch was, that hangover continued long into this year, but at least one part of it is over now, the lawsuit. Cyberpunk's launch was such a catastrophe that CD Projekt Red shareholders actually sued CD Projekt Red, claiming that they misled investors. These sorts of class action lawsuits typically don't result in much since companies have plenty of ways to wiggle out of them. Case in point, CD Projekt Red have settled that suit for a hilariously tiny $1.8 million. This game had over $560 million in revenue for its launch month alone. This is basically the equivalent of a parking ticket for CD Projekt Red. It's a shame because CD Projekt Red did mislead people by saying the game ran surprisingly well on last-gen consoles, and they certainly manipulated the review process to their advantage, forbidding early reviews from using their own recorded footage and refusing to issue console review code. They knew what state the game was in, and they successfully hid that from all of us. It would have been nice to see a more meaningful settlement or penalty applied, one that might have given other publishers pause if they were ever to try to pull the same shit. Sadly, no, and this settlement ultimately proves how easy it is to get away with this sort of stuff. While we're on the topic of CD Projekt Red, their storefront Good Old Games has been struggling for many years, and that appears to still be the case. CD Projekt Red announced that GOG was still running at a loss, and so they're making some changes. Quote, regarding GOG, its performance does present a challenge, and recently we've taken measures to improve its financial standing. First and foremost, we've decided that GOG should focus more on its core business activity, which means offering a hand-picked selection of games with its unique DRM-free philosophy. In line with this approach, there will be changes in the team structure, end quote. They will go on to describe some headcount and costs moving out of the storefront, and there's a strong implication that we can expect fewer titles on there going forward. GOG has struggled to gain momentum in the broader market as it focuses exclusively on DRM games, which means many publishers won't put their games on there because publishers love DRM. It's a frustrating catch-22 for GOG since their approach is commendable, but it also makes it a tough business to run. Separate but related, huge news for the Epic Games Store. They finally have a shopping cart. Oh my god, stop the press is huge news. Science said it couldn't be done, but in the year of our Lord 2021, Tim Sweeney finally cracked it and managed to deliver us this cutting-edge feature. The Epic Store is saved. Gaben, pack it up, mate. No point in using Steam anymore. Seriously though, I remember the arrival of the Epic Games Store years ago, and I welcomed it because I think competition is a good thing, but the Epic Games Store remains so feature incomplete. It's not a shadow of what Steam offers from both a shopping or a community support perspective. Given Epic's vast resources and how fast they can update and evolve Fortnite, it's really stunning to see just how little ground the Epic Games Store has made this year. The Epic Store gets a bum rap for being anti-consumer for their thirst for exclusive deals, but I'll tell you one company that's actually anti-consumer, Nintendo. A while back, Nintendo won a court case where they were defending their refusal of refunds for game pre-orders on the eShop. They fought that in court, and they won. Only a bunch of European consumer protection agencies appealed that decision, and Nintendo lost on appeal. Nintendo has apparently accepted the new ruling, and so now it will have to do the right thing by consumers for a change. Very sad times. Nintendo did get one court case win, however, the one brought against a group selling mod chips for the Nintendo Switch. Gary Bowser, and I'm not making that name up by the way, was sued by Nintendo, whose current president is Doug Bowser, by the way. You cannot make this stuff up. Anyway, Nintendo won the initial suit, and Gary Bowser had to pay Doug Bowser $4.5 million. But Doug Bowser wasn't finished with Gary Bowser. So Doug brought further suit, which Gary also lost, and now he needs to pay another $10 million in damages for a total bill of $14.5 million, and probably some prison time. This is Doug Bowser saying to Gary Bowser, "So long, G Bowser." Please like the video. I worked really hard on that one. I feel like that deserves a like. Just click the button, okay? Thank you. Let's keep going. While we're on the topic of Nintendo, it appears as though Breath of the Wild 2 is still in development, and we may even be able to play it one day. The information is a rumor that comes from IGN's boss, one Piers Schneider, who spoke on an IGN podcast and reported that he chatted with some people in the know at the Game Awards, and they confirmed for him that Breath of the Wild 2 was on track for a 2022 release. He later mentions that we will be playing Breath of the Wild 2 by November, but it's unclear if he was just spitballing here since most games are released by the end of November. Either way, it's encouraging to hear since Breath of the Wild 2's absence from the Game Awards or anywhere else definitely set tongues wagging, fearing that the game might slip into 2023. From Nintendo to Xbox news, I strongly recommend you guys check out Power On, a free documentary series available on YouTube that chronicles the rise and fall and rise of Xbox since its inception 20 years ago. It's a fascinating look at Microsoft's bold play into the market and how they managed to gain a foothold at a time when gaming was rapidly transforming. One of the highlights of the story is, of course, the Red Ring of Death, which struck Xbox 360 like a plague. I worked games retail when this went down. I remember some shifts where like 10 people would be coming in to return a console because of the Red Ring of Death, and when we took trade-ins, we would have to turn on the console and check for it, and I remember seeing the look on people's faces when the Red Ring appeared, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's never done that before. Sure, buddy, good try. Anyway, to celebrate the documentary and the Red Ring of Death, I guess, Microsoft are selling Red Ring of Death posters on their store. For real. Some people are very mad about this because it makes light of a consumer product disaster that legitimately upset and disadvantaged many people, including kids. But at the same time, it's a little bit funny. I mean, I think it's funny, but yeah, I know a lot of people don't. Alright, let's do the fucking NFT news now. I feel like I'm gonna need to add a weekly section to the show next year to cover all of this garbage. Like, this week in no fucking thanks. Damn. That has a real ring to it. This week in no fucking thanks, Stalker 2 developer GSC Game World decided they would cash in on over a decade's worth of hype and affection for their franchise by crudely cramming unnecessary NFT bullshit into their game. The result will shock you. Everyone hated it. It started with an announcement that GSC were planning to add a wide range of NFTs to their game, but the first would be a sort of auction, where whoever held the NFT after a certain period would have their likeness scanned into the game. It's unclear, but it appears as though this winner would also have to pay their costs to get to the studio, so that's nice. Win an auction for a chance to spend even more money. Love it. The backlash to this was a tidal wave of hatred, love to see it, with the entire gaming community ridiculing this as a shameless out-of-touch cash grab, and an unnecessary one at that. The auction they were proposing would have been totally doable without NFTs, so why do that? Realizing that they had made a terrible mistake, the developers took to Twitter to walk back the decision. And by walk back, I mean they put out a big-ass JPEG, doubling down on their initial announcement and explaining all the other NFTs they were going to add to the game later on, including putting people's names on stuff like desks and lamps in-game. Okay? The backlash to this double down was equally fierce, prompting GSC to throw their hands in the air, put out another JPEG announcing that they were pulling all NFT plans and basking in the appreciation of gamers, even though we shouldn't be thanking them for reversing a shitty decision. They knew we would all hate it and they did it anyway. We can say good, but I think saying thank you is a bridge too far. While GSC might have been shamed into submission, NFT software developer Ubisoft was not. Last week, the publisher announced Ubisoft Quartz, a god-awful open salvo in the wall we'll be fighting for the next few years as we try to get game makers off this newly discovered grift. Quartz is very innovative technology in that it makes really bad games even worse. Case in point, if you play Ghost Recon Breakpoint for 600 hours, you get a dumb-looking helmet. If that sounds stupid to you, you're not alone because Ubisoft staff think the same thing. This week, Kotaku reported that Ubisoft's internal forums have been flooded with debate and dissent on the topic. They quoted a few staff as follows, quote, "I still don't really understand the problem being solved here," wrote one employee. "Is it really worth the extremely negative publicity this will cause?" Another asked, "How can you look at private property, speculation, artificial scarcity, and egoism, and then say, yes, this is good. I want that. Let's put it in art." End quote. Well said, Ubisoft employees. Well said. To their credit, Ubisoft's head honchos have listened to this feedback, and they don't give a fuck. This week, blockchain entrepreneur and Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot addressed his staff with one clear message: NFTs are here to stay. According to Ubisoft staff who attended the meeting, Guillemot is said to have linked the outcry to the introduction of DLC, microtransactions, and loot boxes, implying that these things will all get better with time, since obviously gamers are now 100% cool with microtransactions and loot boxes. Right, guys? The other message? Apparently, these Breakpoint NFTs are just the beginning. And while I don't believe much that comes out of Guillemot's mouth these days, I certainly believe that. As if to distract us from all of this, Ubisoft hastily announced a new Splinter Cell game this week. Typically, I'd be really excited about this, like, yay, Ubisoft are finally doing it, etc., but I'm not really feeling it, to be honest. It's a Splinter Cell game, it's a remake of the original, it's early in development, and it'll have NFTs in it. I made up the last part, but I bet you I'm right. Ubisoft, more like Ubisoft NFT. I'm here all week, don't forget to tip your waitresses. With crypto, they aren't into that fiat shit anymore. So, what got announced or delayed this week? Well, it wasn't an announcement per se, but we do have some fairly reliable confirmation that a Ghostbusters game is in the works. The news comes from Ghostbusters star Ernie Hudson, who, when speaking on a panel at Celebrity Fan Fest in San Antonio, confirmed that the game was in development and that he was contributing voice work to it. Quote, "I just got an email because we're doing another video game. They're scheduling it now to do the recording, and I'm not too sure who's gonna do it. I know me and Dan Aykroyd, I'm not sure about Bill Murray, will do anything on it, so there will be another video game," end quote. Man, I really hope Bill Murray is in there. We need more video games with Bill Murray. and less video game movies with Chris Pratt. Ollie Ollie World is looking absolutely delightful as it draws closer to release, a sequel to the original that goes completely buck wild on budget and presentation. Ollie Ollie World is to Ollie Ollie what GTA 3 was to GTA 2. The good news is that we won't be waiting too much longer for this, as its release date has just been confirmed, February 8th, arriving on all platforms. Windjammers 2 is an awesome looking top-down sports game that takes me back to those halcyon 16-bit days playing Speedball 2 on the Mega Drive. This is basically Extreme Pong, or Retired Men's Nude Beach Volleyball League, if everyone had to keep their kit on. It's hitting all platforms on January 20th. Chocobo GP is exactly what it looks like, a Mario Kart style racer featuring cute chibi style characters from the Final Fantasy universe. This one also got a release date announcement March 10th exclusive to the Switch. Blockchain game developer Ubisoft has given us a taste of what Assassin's Creed Infinity could look like by releasing crossover content for 2 separate Assassin's Creed games. One update titled Those Who Are Treasured is playable in AC Odyssey, while a corresponding update titled A Fate Encountered is playable in Valhalla. The 2 stories will pit the game's protagonists against each other, at least briefly, but I expect they'll reconcile their differences and start working together at some point so they can track down a highly praised treasure. If you have the stomach for more Assassin's Creed, this update is available right now for free for anyone who owns either game. The other AC announcement was a standalone expansion to Valhalla titled Dawn of Ragnarok. It kind of just looks like God of War, and it's promising around 30 hours of gameplay, which is basically how long God of War took, a little less in fact. I'm not against this, to be honest. My biggest problem with Valhalla was that it stretched forever. Had it been roughly 30 hours long and just focused on the good stuff, I probably would have liked it. So if this is that, then yeah, I'll give it a shot while we all wait for the real Ragnarok to roll around. This update is hitting all platforms but the Switch on March 10th. Final announcement for the week was the reveal of the official PlayStation 5 cover plates directly from Sony, as well as a range of new DualSense colors. Sony has been on the legal warpath, shutting down numerous independent operators whose designs were a little too similar to Sony's originals. I'm looking at you, PlayStation 5 and D-Brand. But now all the lawyering is done, so Sony are ready to pull back the curtain on their own plates. They are, well, yeah, they're just the same, but they're a different color, but it's nice to know that we'll be able to purchase these in most regions without risk of our purchase suddenly evaporating when the supplier files for bankruptcy. That's a nice feeling. The only delay announcement this week was from Ubisoft, who put out a JPEG saying that the promised major title update for The Division 2 was being delayed from February next year to some point later in the year. No specific date provided yet. My big question is, has this JPEG been minted as an NFT yet? Because if it hasn't, I'm claiming it right now. I'm going to put this on OpenSea. Bidding starts at $100,000 or 3 Ghost Recon Breakpoint weapon skins, whichever hits my crypto wallet first. So what came out this week? Well, big surprise, Pray for the Gods released in 1.0 this week. Now, this one has had a real journey. It's been in early access for quite some time now and has received some very good buzz. It was meant to release earlier this year, but it's a very small dev team and some of them had some challenges in their personal lives that necessitated the delay. The game suddenly appeared in 1.0 this week, and the feedback has been solid, with the game sitting at around about 80% positive at the moment on Steam. This one obviously wears its Shadow of the Colossus inspiration on its sleeve, but it's not like we're getting a sequel to that one anytime soon, so I'll take what I can get. I do plan to check this one out over the holidays. Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo also had a surprise release this week on Steam ahead of its console releases next year. I was really hyped about this one because I love me some Hitchcock, but this is actually inspired by Vertigo rather than being like actually based on it, like an adaptation, which I don't know, I feel like you probably should have called it something different, I think. Anyway, too few reviews out for this one yet to know how it's landed, but if you want to take a chance on it, it's available now. The only other release of the week was Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, which arrived exclusive to the Epic Games Store this week, to the disappointment of, well, pretty much everyone, because we'd all rather it be on Steam, thank you very much. The Epic exclusivity may have been a blessing in disguise, as it turns out that the PC port is atrocious. That's according to the experts over at Digital Foundry. John Linneman took to Twitter to broadcast the findings of his counterpart, Alex Battaglia. Quote, "Alert, Alex sent me his clips for us to check out, and yeah, the PC port of Final Fantasy VII Remake is terrible. He captured this using an RTX 3090 plus 10900K at just 1080p, and it's a mess. The smooth presentation was central to its storytelling, and this version compromises it," end quote. Alex himself would post on a forum, quote, "This is literally the worst AAA release I have seen on a PC in a good time. I humbly submit that no one should buy it," end quote. Truly damning words when it comes from an outlet as respected as Digital Foundry. At the time of writing, they've yet to put out a video for this one, but I can't wait to see them bust apart this port. Japanese PC ports always feel like such a crapshoot, where sometimes you get Monster Hunter Stories 2, and other times you get Nier Automata, a port that took them like 3 years to fix. Absolutely ridiculous. For now, those brave enough to have purchased it on Epic are the beta testers. We appreciate your sacrifice, and we'll pick it up when it's fixed / on Steam. So what's coming out this week? Nothing, man. It's Christmas. You have a pile of shame 3 years high. Don't tell me you need more games coming out this week as well. Game releases are taking a holiday until the new year, and so should you. Kick back, play some Halo, some It Takes Two, some Metroid Dread, or some Battlefield 2042. Okay? You know, just the classics. Put this on your radar. This week, Nintendo held an indie showcase, and while there were plenty of interesting titles in the mix, this one shone the brightest. Sea of Stars is from developer Sabotage. You probably know these guys from the excellent The Messenger, a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up, which was a spiritual successor to the classic Ninja Gaiden games. Well, clearly they're not done spiritually successing, because Sea of Stars is leaning hard into the classic Chrono Cross and Xenogears formula, to the point where they've recruited the actual game composer for these classic games, Yasunori Mitsuda. By the way, the music is already sounding fantastic, and the art looks gorgeous, and the combat system looks interesting, and the world looks inviting. This is one hell of a good first impression to make. Sea of Stars is confirmed for both the Nintendo Switch and Steam, releasing holiday 2022. I'll leave a link to the Steam page below. If you're interested, then please do wishlist this one, as wishlists always help out developers in a big way. Much like subscribing to a YouTube channel. Just a thought. Sort of free stuff time, and I have some very good news. Tim Sweeney is putting on that big red suit, stuffing a pillow under his shirt, and pinning on a fake white beard. The only question is, have you been naughty or nice? And that sounds really creepy. I probably should have rewritten that block. Point is, the Epic Games Store is delivering Christmas cheer directly to your Epic library. They're giving away 15 free games before the year is out. They've already given away some bangers like Neon Abyss and Remnant from the Ashes and Shenmue 3. Not exactly a banger, but hey, at least it's free. New games are up every day, and they only stay up for that day, and we don't get any advance notice, so I don't even know what will be up by the time this video goes live. Be sure to check back every day over the next week to grab yourself some cool free shit. The only other thing we got this month is a Game Pass refresh full of some very pleasant surprises. If Psychonauts 2 wet your whistle and you're keen for some more of Tim Schafer's antics, then Double Fine's Broken Age is on there. For the more bloodthirsty among you, Mortal Kombat 11 is also in there, not bad at all. Newly released The Gunk is included. This one has had some mixed reviews, but some people enjoy it, so maybe it'll click for you. Finally, Firewatch. Okay, so this one is complicated because I think it does some really interesting things at the front end, especially for its time when it released a few years back, because walking simulators weren't as ubiquitous as they are now. But yeah, that ending, man, ending really blows. Still, I recommend checking it out, as a lot of it's great and worth experiencing despite a failure to stick the landing. Our feel-good story for the week is, and you probably guessed what it is, Final Fantasy XIV is so fucking popular that they had to stop selling and pulling all advertising, and I'm not making any of that up. In case you've been living on the moon, hanging out with Derplander, Final Fantasy XIV released their Endwalker expansion a few weeks back, and it's been a little tricky to play it, not due to horrendous bugs rendering the game unplayable like pretty much every AAA game that gets released these days. No, the problem is that so many people were trying to play the game that there was no room. The servers were full. All of them, every hour of every day. Square Enix did their best to avoid this issue by trying to buy additional server hardware earlier in the year, but due to COVID, they literally could not buy more servers even when they offered to pay well above market price. They literally tried to throw money at this problem, but no one would take their money. With queues stretching hours long, Square Enix had previously awarded people free game time as compensation, but this week they took the extraordinary step of suspending sales of the game. You cannot buy Final Fantasy XIV right now. This also meant that they pulled almost all of their existing ad spend, since there's no point in advertising something that people can't buy. This is pretty remarkable, not only because it's yet another inspiring milestone in Final Fantasy XIV's redemption arc, but because this is a company that is literally losing money just so it can do right by its players. They could have kept selling copies, riding this intense wave of hype as more and more dollars flew into their bank account and queues got longer and longer, but no, they took the hit so that Final Fantasy XIV could continue to be known as a game that puts its players first. And that is a rare and remarkable story in the world of video games, but especially in the world of AAA video games. Yoshi P, truly suffering from success in a way that no other game maker currently does. By the way, don't you think we should intervene to stop Yoshi P from smoking? I don't want anything to happen to this man, and every time I see a cigarette in his mouth, it makes me nervous. I'm gonna send him some of those nicotine patches for Christmas. That'll help. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the week in video games, the last regular show of the year. So please If you enjoyed it, do drop it a like. I would appreciate that a great deal. Next week will be a special event as we take a look back at the biggest news stories that defined this hellish year. A nice arc, given that it was my 2020 year in review video that birthed this weekly news show. I'm looking forward to that one, and if you are too, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ding the notification bell so you'll know the minute that video goes live. Thank you all for watching, and a very special thank you to this week's sponsor, Squarespace. Guys, for the last 2 years, Squarespace has been a supporter of this channel. Someone cracked a joke in the comment section once that was like, before dinner, Shill-Up doesn't say grace, he says, "This dinner is brought to you by Squarespace." It was a good zinger, and it's also kind of true, I guess, in a way. The support that Squarespace provides helps me do what I do on YouTube. Since AdSense is notoriously unreliable and demonetization is this sword of Damocles hanging over every video, with support like Squarespace, I can do what I do and pay Austin a full-time salary and not worry that this whole thing is going to collapse in a heap the next time YouTube makes some stupid policy or algorithm change. Well, I'm very proud to say that Squarespace have re-signed the channel for a 3rd year running. They're going to continue supporting me so I can continue making content for you guys. And I really appreciate that, so a big thank you to Squarespace. Squarespace are helping me turn my passion into a career, and that's something they do for a lot of people through the service they provide. Squarespace allows you to build professional-looking websites using really customizable templates as a starting point so that you don't need experience in web design to get started. They also provide really useful tools like end-to-end e-commerce so you can sell things online, and advanced analytics so you can see what people are doing when they are on your website. If you have a passion that you want to turn into a career, then a website is a very good start, and there's no better place to build a website than Squarespace. I would love it if you guys could do me a solid and just give the Squarespace link below a click. It's an easy way to show your support for the support they're showing me. And if you do want to build your own website, you can visit squarespace.com/skillup for a 10% discount off your first purchase of a website or a domain name. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring the channel for another year. That is huge. It's amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you all for watching, since none of this happens without you guys. All the best. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down so I know to do better for next time. If you enjoyed yourself, consider subscribing, and if you really enjoyed yourself, maybe consider hitting that notification bell so you never miss a video. You can see my patrons here on the left. They're awesome. They're amazing. If you want to join them, check out my Patreon page. Thank you again. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.